And a very pleasant Tuesday evening. Welcome to Ridgecrest Talk. I'm Tom Heck. Anthony Barnes, head track coach at Burroughs High School, also the head cross-country coach for the boys at Burroughs High School with us. He was here in the fall. He was talking about his cross-country team. He's been doing it for an awful long time with both the field events for track and also for cross-country. And Anthony, I got to ask you, what made you fall in love with running, cross-country, and the whole thing?
Oh, what made me fall in love with it? That's kind of a long history.
You have plenty of time. Go right ahead.
Actually, when I was a child, I was not getting recognition in some other team sports, baseball in particular, and I basically fell into Junior Olympics when I was in the 6th grade. That just kind of grew into other things, and even though track and field a lot of people think is an individual sport, or cross country for that matter, they're actually very team oriented, and it felt more like family. And that's kind of been our whole philosophy leading into this whole year, especially with the track season, was trying to build a family atmosphere where the whole group gets along. There's not one group that's kind of better than the other, or segregated, or special. And it really did develop throughout the season, where the team integrated and became a family.
So that's kind of one reason you really like the sport, when you can get everybody involved on the same page and everything. Over the years, how has cross country changed? I remember when I was in high school, it was 2 miles, and then correct me if I'm wrong, it's 3 miles now. Yeah. And community college, is that 5 miles? And what is Division I? Do you have how they break that down?
Yeah, community college for the men is actually 4 miles.
4 miles, okay.
And 5K for the women, and then it's anywhere from 8K to 10K at Division I. The national championships are at 10K, I believe, but a lot of the races are at 8 kilometers.
Mm-hmm. Now, for those that aren't familiar with all of that, the kilometers and everything, so traditionally, what is mile-wise for Division I, an average Division I program? If you put it into miles, what would you, just out of curiosity?
In miles in terms of?
Yeah, a mile, just a distance.
Oh, 8 kilometers is about 5 miles.
5 miles, okay.
10 kilometers is 6.2.
Okay. Were you happy when they went to 3 miles versus 2 miles for high school?
Well, that actually happened when I first started. All the lower divisions and all the women were only running 2 miles. The only ones that were running 5K, which is 3.1 miles or 3 miles, were the varsity boys. But that changed mid-'80s, along with the girls and the women's moving up as well.
Mm-hmm. Is there a big difference in training principles, 3 miles versus 2 miles?
Not really, just volume in terms of mileage. Believe it or not, in some ways, we actually run fewer miles than they did back in, say, the 70s, when it was only a 2-mile race. It wasn't uncommon for a lot of the programs to be going out and running 90 to 120 miles a week. And that's where some great runners came out of those programs, but it was killing the athletes at the same time, because it was just too much volume too soon.
Now, I know in the summertime you have trained over at Saracoso early in the mornings. Take us through what each month represents, when you start, and what the emphasis is on each month as you build towards the season.
Well, we always start with the base, what we call base training in anything we do, which is increased volume, just trying to build our volume up without really pushing or stressing the speed, whether it be even short sprints or distance running. You basically have to build the athletes up first, and then as the season progresses into the preseason, you start bringing in more of the speed element, the shorter distances, more repetition, and less mileage. Or maintaining the mileage, and then you get into your season where you start to bring things down a little bit more speed work. Then you end up at the end of the season with a taper, where you really running really fast, but not a whole lot of volume in particular. Mm-hmm.
So towards the end of the season, let's just take maybe October. I think the season ends right around the 1st of November, the regular season. What you make some cutbacks in as far as days when you're not running meets, then, correct?
Yeah, and we have learned that we don't cut back as much mileage as we used to think we had to. Actually maintaining a certain level of mileage is actually more beneficial. Keeps them fresher, and when it comes time for a peak performance, we can actually get a little bit longer peak than say we would have in the past. And given, especially in the southern section, where our qualifying, if you're going to go all the way to the state meet, you have to perform at a high level for 4 weeks in a row, because you have your league finals, and depending on what league you're in, it can be very competitive. But you have your league finals 1 week, your CIF prelims the following week, CIF finals the 3rd week, and then the state meet is 4 weeks later. So you really have to manage and not peak too early, but at the same time, watch your mileage, maintain it a little bit more so that you can, lengthen out that peak performance.
Mm-hmm. Now, what would be, let's take the league champion, for example, and I know you were in the Desert Sky a year ago, this year, Mojave River League, but give us some good times of the top, maybe 3 or 4 runners in the league, and what are some of the best times you've ever seen in the league?
Well, we moved leagues, as you know, and like you pointed out. Had we stayed in the Desert Sky League, we would have actually dominated with ease the league. We knew coming into the Mojave River League things were more competitive. As it were, we did end up having with one of the top 5 runners in the league, which was Christian Schultz. And for a typical 5K, or better yet, we can use Mount Sac because it's a typical measuring stick that we can use for the entire season or what's going to happen in the postseason. And anything under 16 minutes makes you competitive to possibly go, to finals or to the state meet. And in the case of Christian, yes, he broke 16 minutes and was able to actually compete all the way to CIF finals. As a team, though, and that's what we really try to stress a little bit more, things have gotten really competitive. In 2003, when we finished 2nd in the state meet, we ran a team time just over 80 minutes, which is just over 16-minute average for 5 runners on the Mount Sac course. And now, with that time, we would be probably only in the top 5, top 6 in the state. Things have gotten faster, more competitive. The coaches, the younger coaches, don't mind saying the younger coaches.
Hold that thought. We're going to take our first break. When we come back, we'll hear more. I want to hear more on that. This is Anthony Barnes. I'm Tom Heck. We'll be back in just a few minutes. This is Ridgecrest Talk right here on KZGN. And we are back. If you just tuned in, this is Ridgecrest Talk. Our theme on Tuesday night is sports, local community athletics, and this is Anthony Barnes, the head track coach over at Burroughs High School, also the head cross-country coach for the boys, and we've been talking about his cross-country. I want you to finish your thought on the best times and the competitiveness and how it's changed as you were talking about.
Yeah, what I was going to point out is a few of us are getting definitely a little bit older in the coaching years, and I'm not that old per se, but there's a young group of coaches and former athletes that are just coming in the last 5-6 years who have made the sport just incredibly competitive, and it's a good thing. We're seeing the increased competitiveness take hold all the way up to our competitiveness at the Olympic level. And it's a good thing, especially for our country and everything else. So, with that being said, they're just doing it better than we are. And I don't mind saying that I've got one of my former athletes, Eddie Lee, who's over in Bakersfield, and he's coaching, and it has an extremely successful program going. That's what that's what I at least hope out of my athletes, is that they go on to do better than we do. And it actually helps us, feel better and proud about what we do. So.
Do you think a lot of the marathon runners, now marathon obviously is a different animal when you run 20+ miles, but do you think a lot of those folks got their start maybe in high school or college cross country?
Oh, absolutely. There's no question about it. Our national record holder, Ryan Hall, who did happen to run in town back in the early 2000s, ran Big Bear, was a state champion, almost a sub 4-minute miler in high school. But he went on, did well in college, but really came into his own later on and extended out the miles, and now holds pretty much every American record from half marathon up to the marathon distance.
Wow, my goodness.
And I have a picture on my wall as just a reminder of all those things too.
Now, you know, somebody asked me, when you're running a marathon, and again, marathon, let's figuratively 15, 20 plus miles, is it easy to get lost off the course, or is that pretty much impossible?
Well, and yeah, in a regular marathon, not something that's going through the desert or off-road, so to speak. Off-road marathons, ultra marathons, it's easy. I myself, even though I've been on, say, the ultra up here on that course more than once, the third time I was on it, I actually took a wrong turn. And there's various reasons as to why that happens. And it was, you know, strictly the athlete, myself. It was my fault. When you're in a road marathon, though, not going to happen. Most of the time, everything's so well marked and course-marshalled that it's almost impossible to go the wrong way unless there's somebody who's a marshal, you know, giving you directions, sends you the wrong way. So that generally doesn't happen, even if you know, you become exhausted and kind of lose your thought.
Well, that would be something to see. In your experiences with high school, have you ever seen a real catastrophe where somebody was running a great race and just wasn't familiar with the course, or they thought they were, and took a wrong turn that cost them or the team some points?
Well, yeah. I'd like to tell a story about Philip DeMay in a dual meet. Was supposed to be an easy workout against Apple Valley, and I believe this was 1998. Top runner, one of the top runners in the league, and you know, actually had been on the course. But he led the team 200 yards down a hill in the wrong direction. And to get back to the course, they had to go back up the hill and around. It almost cost us the meet. We ended up still winning, and actually Philip ended up still winning the race, believe it or not. But the downside was it did cost us. The amount of effort they had to put in now, instead of kind of relaxing and doing a workout, cost them later on at the league finals and eventually at CIF.
Wow.
They were tired and their legs were toast.
Wow, well, that's too bad. Gosh. Hey, how hard is it, Anthony, to qualify for a marathon event? Can anyone, you know, you watch them on TV, sometimes they're all lined up, they're just stacked up. Can anyone just join in there, or do you have to really have qualified and have kind of a background, so to say?
Well, as I like to say, anybody can run a marathon. You don't have to have trained for it. It depends on the marathon you choose. For instance, if you do choose Boston, you do have to meet a qualifying standard. And you know, that changes from year to year over time. But you have to qualify at some previous marathon that is a legal marathon and sanctioned by, you know, the USA Track and Field, or you know, whatever governing body. From that, you qualify for, say, Boston by getting under a certain time. That's the only time you really have to qualify. What I mean by anybody can actually do one, the body's pretty amazing, but the consequences of somebody just going out and doing it without training are definitely long-term and more severe to somebody who doesn't train than compared to the person who does train for that specifically. So, but for qualifying for Boston, how difficult is it? From a personal experience, I'd say it's fairly difficult, but it wasn't as difficult for me personally. It wasn't as difficult as I thought it would be. I think it was 95, I qualified for Boston. I ran under 3 hours and 5 minutes is basically what I had to do.
Wow.
In a marathon. I overtrained a little bit, kind of paid the price a little bit in the race, but nonetheless, here I was a sprinter and a jumper in high school and in college, and I trained for it, but at the same time I was able to turn it around and you know, like I said, qualify for a marathon. So like I said, how difficult, you know, just it depends on the person, I guess.
Did you place at the marathon in Boston? Or?
Well, no, I didn't actually go. I qualified. That was my goal.
Okay,
but I didn't actually get to go.
Is that a real financial gain for people that put those on? Is it expensive to get into one of those?
It's expensive to get in, and yes, it's a financial gain for people who put those things on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And that's and they sometimes get, like Boston Marathon gets TV coverage, and
Yeah.
and I'm sure that they make a little bit of money on that also.
A lot of revenue.
A lot of revenue. Well, when we come back for our last segment, we're going to talk about track and field this spring and talk about how the Burros did in some individual honors. And there's some folks that are still going as we head into the end of May. So don't go away. We're back after this timeout. This is Ridgecrest Talk right here on KZGN. And we are back for our last segment. If you just tuned in, I'm Tom Heck, Anthony Barnes. Tuesday night, our theme sports here on KZGN. Anthony, the head cross-country coach and head track and field coach for the boys and girls over at Burros. And Anthony, season winding down, how's it been this spring?
Actually, the season went really well, minus our last home meet. That was the day we got the lightning, thunder, and hail up at the college. It actually canceled our last meet. It actually also prevented us from attempting, and we really believed we were going to beat the Sultana team that we were going against. So we would have finished second in the league, as it were. We still ended up third on the boys' side.
Was that a dual meet?
It was a dual meet.
Okay.
And then on the girls' side, we had a chance actually to finish third. We ended up, again, finishing fourth, tied for fourth with Sultana. In both cases, we tied with them. Had we beaten them in both cases, we would have actually finished a place higher. So,
now, what is the rule for lightning that same afternoon? Right, I was right next door with Saracoso baseball, and it got a little bit dark, and the lightning came. And was that an automatic? You stop and wait till there's no visible lightning, or how does that work with CIA?
Well, it's the same as any other. In actuality, ours was the day after the baseball game. I remember the baseball game because the baseball game we were down there.
Okay, that's right. Consecutive days.
It was
about the same
days.
time almost. Okay,
it was.
Right.
It was. And what was amazing is how quickly the second day storm came in. Because it was a clear day. We have great pictures. We were taking pictures, doing senior honors.
That's right.
It was clear, sunny, and literally within an hour, things changed. In the meantime of that, what was amazing, and we have a great picture of Joe Humphrey. He broke the school record in the pole vault, got 13.8. But as he's going over, and there's a picture of him going over, there's this incredibly ominous dark cloud above him. And as soon as he goes over, next thing you know, lightning goes flashing across the sky.
Oh boy!
And it was pretty much a done deal. That's just automatic, and it got very intense that day. We actually didn't have the speaker system plugged in. It was unplugged by Mr. Vasquez, our equipment manager at the school, and lightning hit so close that the speaker started to crackle. And we were joking around with him going, maybe you should have unplugged it before. And he pointed, he goes, it's unplugged.
Oh.
And yet the speakers were still got that much electricity flowing through them that he had to go and turn the switch off because it was actually making the speakers function. But that was just kind of like a weird whatever situation.
It came quick. I remember
it did.
You're right, that Wednesday, because we were doing the 5th grade basketball league.
Yep.
And right around 4 o'clock, the heavens opened up, if I remember, and I'm thinking, 2 hours ago the sun was out. And who would have thought almost the exact same time as the day before, the Tuesday, when Coso had a baseball game. Well, who were some of the individuals that had some good seasons?
Well, individually, we had 2 league champions. We had Tyler Moulton and Madison Felix. They were, obviously the highlights of our league season. We did have 7 qualifiers for CIF, including Malik McIntosh in the 1,600 and 3,200 meters, Madison Felix in the shot put, and in the discus, not the shot put, Jennifer Candell in the shot put and the discus, Tyler Moulton, shot put and discus, Alex Rockwell in the discus, I'm sorry, shot put, not the discus. Hard to remember all these things sometimes. Sure. Michelle Pettit in the triple jump. Joe Humphrey in the pole vault. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else. That's pretty much it. And out of that, we had 3 individuals all in the discus, maintaining our illustrious reputation and tradition that this town, Ridgecrest, has developed in the discus. 3 of them qualified. Jennifer Candell with a personal best performance, improving 2 feet in order to qualify.
Wow.
in the discus as the 9th qualifier. Madison Felix qualified as the 8th qualifier, even though she had an off day. And excuse me, and Tyler Moulton, also near his personal best, qualified in the discus as well. Others' performances were good. Joe Humphrey was a little bit off on the pole vault, unfortunately, but he's on a new pole. Even after he broke his other pole. And let's see, Alex Rockwell improved his shot put performance by over 2 feet to place well. And in particular, Malik McIntosh improved over 20 seconds in the 3200 and went from being ranked 36th, I believe it was, going into the prelim, and came out 16th.
Wow.
You had to be in the top 9 in order to qualify. So those are some of the highlights individually, what happened, towards the end of the season, things like that. We had some other great performances. Michelle Pettit in the triple jump along the way became the 2nd best performer in Burroughs history in the triple jump. So really, again, the biggest enjoyment and pleasure we got out of it, and what was the biggest goal that we achieved, I think, though, was the fact that we became, again, a team, a family, where there was no specific, groups. And when we sat on the buses or traveled and went different places, the kids were always interspersed, intermixed. And of course, singing became a big thing, and some of the kids that we never thought would sing would be singing, and it was great to see the kids enjoying themselves and being one, being a team.
That's great.
And being, we did win the sportsmanship award for both the men and women in the league as well. So it was a good season all the way around in trying to accomplish certain things, not necessarily wins and losses.
In the last minute or so, talk about the participation. Is it a sport where you think just as a whole for high schools, is it getting tougher and tougher to get enough people, enough kids out there to fill all the different events, or have you seen maybe an influx of participation? Well,
what it is, more or less what's tough is if we allowed people to just come and go freely, then the numbers and participation would be probably greater. Getting people to understand, though, that it's a commitment and a time commitment, that we have to do things, including over spring break. That's probably the hardest part, is to get them to realize that. And that's part of the reason why the numbers are down. Unfortunately, it is, kind of become recognized as a secondary sport to a lot of people, where they might have soccer or volleyball or another sport that they're primary. They come out and do track, but if they're also doing club during the season, they still put that as a precedent.
Okay, Anthony, appreciate your time tonight, and we wish you well.
Thank you.
Anthony Barnes, the head track and field coach at Burroughs High School, also the head cross-country coach. Hope you enjoyed tonight. I'm Tom Heck. We'll see you again next Tuesday night right here on Ridgecrest Talk.